Well, that's doing good. Not so much now.
Yeah.
So Blackfork Gravel Grinder, 54 miles, 5,800 feet of climbing, some really gnarly gravel roads down in Holmes County, the Mohican area. I rode this 4 years ago and kind of swore I would never do it again, but all my friends signed up and rented a cabin, and FOMO got to me, so I signed up myself. We'll get into all the details of how the ride went, what I rode, what I felt about it. But first off, we started out, me and Aaron went down on Friday evening, checked out the cabin, signed in, and then went over to packet pickup, which is great. We got to run into some friends over there, the White brothers, who I haven't seen for a long time. Hung out, chatted for a while. Went back to the cabin. We were staying at Mohican Adventures, I believe this campground was called, 5-6 miles away from the start of the race. But our friends had told us that you could take a bike trail right into Loudonville, which is the nearest town to this area. So yeah, it was a couple mile ride. Me and Aaron rode in and went to the Blackfork Bistro for dinner. Ben and Mike went and checked in. They were driving down separately at different times, and they came down and met us at the restaurant. So we all got dinner together, had a couple beers, and it was a really cool spot. Good food, huge beer selection. We headed back to the cabin, got a little fire going, hung out for the evening. Our friend Ames also came down and stayed in the cabin. She got down a little later that evening, but yeah, kind of just a chill evening the night before the ride. In the morning, got up, got the bikes all set up, you know, got the numbers put on, everyone got the right tire pressure, chain lubed and all that, and then it was down to the start of the race. I think we got down there at 9. The start time was 10 o'clock, 10 a.m., which is good, not too early, not too late. One of the great things was it was already warm enough that I didn't have to bring any extra layers to the start line. So I wore, you know, my chrome shorts and a wool jersey, short sleeve, and I was fine right from the start, which I just love that. It's nice not having to worry about clothes. I actually saw more of my friends, I think, right on the start line than I did like all day. I mean, we hung out after and had a good time too, but just kind of running into everyone down here. Me and Aaron were commenting about how just so many race bikes and so much kit. I mean, this is a tough ride, so it makes total sense, but with the kind of events we usually do, it's just less of normally what I see. So yeah, lots of carbon, lots of kit and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, nothing wrong with that. I mean, I have the Giro d'Italia on in the background. I love bike racing, so just that observation when I'm used to things like nutmeg and higher ground, and you know, even road apple is a little less race oriented. But yeah, ride started off chill. So original intention was to go out kind of hard to get a little bit ahead of people on the climbs because it could get really jammed up, but I just didn't do it. It's not in me. Wasn't in me that day. But I had so many nerves for this ride that I just started making jokes right off the bat. We had a tiny little rise in the paved road before we even hit the gravel, and I'm like, is there going to be more of this on this route? And everyone around me laughing. And then a friend who kind of went off the road looking at their head unit and hit the gravel at the side of the road. I'm like, man, this woman can't wait to get to the gravel. So I just know myself, and when the nerves come out, like I just deal with everything with humor. So the reason I had so many nerves is because some of these descents are really gnarly, and I just remember how sketched out I felt doing it 4 years ago. It's just not the kind of riding I do that much. You know, I do a little bit of mountain biking here and there and stuff like that, but like super high speeds on loose and rugged gravel roads is just not something I do that often. So, you know, I was a little nervous about it. The first 3 big hills are interesting because there's such a crowd and so many people just hop off their bikes, which is fine. You know, I think some people are going out unprepared for this ride. They don't realize like, oh, gravel ride, I'm gonna go do this. I think some people just don't have the gearing. I think that's like more of an issue out there. But yeah, just, so you really have to be careful. And that was one of my initial ideas of wanting to go out faster to get past some of that. But everyone I talked to told me that no matter where they were, it was kind of a thing. Me and this guy here, this is the second climb, and we were 2 of the ones who rode it all the way up. So even gave each other a little bit of a fist bump for making it up there at the end. I also thought it was funny because we're 2 of the little less racy looking guys, and we both made it up the climb, so it was kind of cool. But yeah, it's one of those things too where there's a big crowd, and I understand, like, if you need to hop off, you need to hop off. No big deal. There's just a lot of people who aren't used to riding in groups and don't understand like any kind of good etiquette. It's like, you know, if you have to hop off, try and hop off quick and move to the side, especially on the first climb, which is just a pretty normal gravel road. I mean, it's super steep and hard to climb up, but it is frustrating when people are not paying attention to anything and just stop, you know. Stuff happens, you know. There was in the first steep corner, there was a guy who was clipped in. You could tell he didn't expect not to make it around that corner. He went down, it caused a cascading effect. A bunch of people went down that corner. Good thing me and Ben and Mike just had a little bit of room to slow down and not put a foot down and get around him. But the third climb on this route, and I think it's the third one, is a road that's, I think it's a closed road, and there's really only one line. And this is where, and I talked to the people who came in around 3 hours and the people who came in around 6 hours, and everyone that I talked to just a little annoyed with the poor etiquette of some people who decide they're gonna walk it right away, and there's only really one good line on that climb, and I think that's what we're looking at here. It might not be this climb, I can't remember for sure, but it's something like this, where there's one center ridge and the edges are just rocky and bouldery and it's super steep. Well, some people decide to wear road clipless shoes and then they're gonna walk up the smoothest part of the trail. I just think that's a bunch of BS. If you're gonna walk, you gotta move over. You don't get to take the good line. I just think it's a bike ride, and I don't care how fast you're walking. Like, people who want to try and ride it should have the option to try and ride it. Again, I understand it's crowded, and I understand, like, the guy who stopped in front of me, again, it wasn't on purpose. Like, he was trying to make it. So that happens. In a big crowded field, 750 riders, it happens. But there are some people who are just totally not cool. So yeah, you decide you're going to wear shoes that you can't walk in, that's on you. And you need to move out of the way. So anyways, didn't make it up that third climb. Did have to do a lot of walking on it, but that's pretty typical. And I'm not saying I can make it all the way up, but I would love to go back and try it. On this ride too, I rode with Mike for a while, then I was alone out there. Ben ended up kind of slowing up and I caught up to him, and we rode then almost the entire last 2/3 of the ride together, which was nice. Here there's a section where you hit the Holmes County Trail and this really long, cool covered bridge, the Bridge of Dreams. And this is kind of the recovery period on the ride. There's a little inner loop here, but you get to ride the bike trail for a while and then you go off and do a loop, like back on gravel roads and some climbs. And you can see right here, these are I think the lead group's passing us, as they've already done that full loop before we head off. And then the first aid station is also there after you do the loop and come back around. But yeah, this is a little bit of recovery. I'm still going at a decent pace. I think we're riding like 15, 16 miles per hour here, but this was a ride where I just did not go out and like totally intend to crush it and be in the red and like really be hurting. Like, there's no way to ride Blackfork easily because these climbs are just so steep and tough and there's just so much climbing. So, you know, whether you came in last or whether you came in first, everybody out there, like, it's an accomplishment to finish this ride and it's a tough challenge. So, you know, but I'd say somewhere between just out for a ride and racing myself. I definitely was, you know, pushing it a little bit, but me and Ben were also like in the flat parts, like conversational and stuff like that. So kind of a mix. I didn't stop, you know, I didn't stop to take pictures. I didn't stop to hang out at the aid stations. The last aid station, I was out of water, but it was really cool that you'll see the guys were out there like with the jugs, with the spouts, like filling it up for people who really wanted to keep moving, which is really cool. And especially since I'm mid back of the overall pack, that they were still doing that for people who, you know, were trying to beat a PR or whatever it may be. Just really cool. On this trail, on this ride, every kind of different gravel. Like here you see like the perfect dirt roads that were, you know, just great. You could be real comfortable and confident out there. But, you know, there's some that are much, like I said, rutted out. There are other ones where they've poured down more fresh gravel or more like, even like a mid-sized pebbly gravel. So you just really encounter it all. But it's truly, truly beautiful. I mean, even the climbs, like, and all that, and getting up there out in the country, it's all worth it for how pretty it is. So the reasons I was so nervous about coming out and doing it, the last time I rode my rally, it had its old TRP spires on it, and they're beat up brakes. Like I've said before, I don't think they were all that ever good to begin with. 42 mil tires, and riding stuff like this, the descents just scared the heck out of me. And then also being in people's way worried me. And even on this one a little bit where, you know, I'd be taking a descent, I would be conscious of who was around me. And if I wasn't going to be able to fully let it go, you know, staying to the right, even if it wasn't going to be the best line, which is one thing that is a little stressful in big races. I think there's a lot of people who probably do this very often, so they're very used to it. For me, I ride mostly with my friends, or when I do events, they're not competitive or on terrain where is that gnarly. So it is one of those things you have to look out. Again, with some etiquette, I get it at the beginning of the race when it's really crowded. You're not going to tell everybody you're passing them. You're not going to point out every kind of obstacle or pothole and stuff like that. But once it gets spread out, like the people who like close past you and don't let you know they're there, I don't understand that. Also, these are open roads, and when you really relay the message that there's a car back and the person in front of you doesn't tell the next group and they're spread out, it's just really frustrating. So if you're someone who clicked over because says Blackfork and you're not a usual channel watcher, or maybe you're not a usual group rider, this is normal etiquette. There's a big pothole and you're able to point it out. There's a center post and you're able to point it out. And if you know there's a car behind and the people in front of you don't know it, like especially on these kind of paved roads, you got to let people know. That is normal group etiquette. So I hope there's a few people watching that don't know that learn that is the way we do things on bikes. So I had put out a poll on YouTube about whether I should ride my Rally or my Gunnar. 64% of you said the Gunnar. That's also what I went with. I just decided those 55mm tires would be awesome on these descents that I'm not that comfortable on, and that the sweep bars, just a long day out, would be like the way to go. I'm glad that's the decision I made, even though the Rally is in better situation than it was last time I rode this with the really nice Equal Growtech brakes. And then also it has much easier gearing now. It's funny, I came in at almost within a couple minutes at the exact same time as 4 years ago. I think the thing is I was able to descend a lot faster on this bike, but with the Rally when I rode it originally, it only had 34 gearing, so I think I just had no choice but to ride some of the steep climbs faster. So this bike, I think my easiest gear is 2842. So yeah, just being able to spin a little more, and that's kind of what I did on a lot of the steep hills. I just kind of, didn't want to blow myself up because, again, like I said, I wasn't just out there having a, day in the park, but I was also, not going as hard as I could. So it was the right decision. I enjoyed having like full day on the bike with comfort of my sweep bars and, spinning up the hills. And as I said, the confidence I could descend on this bike is just much more. I was thinking about if I did this event again, would I choose the same bike? I think so. I think I would still go with the Gunnar. I think the wider tires are just the right choice for me with my skill set. I was also thinking, like, will I do this event again? So some of the stresses I've mentioned of other riders in a crowded field and that kind of stuff make me feel like if I did it again, I would probably try and push it. Like, so I came in around 4 hours, 17 minutes, and maybe it would be like a goal of trying to get under 4 hours. Again, not going completely ballistic or bonkers, but just trying to race for myself and you make more of an effort, because this is only about an hour away from here, and we could go and ride these open roads on our own and enjoy it and make a day out of it. I do like events. I do like getting to meet new people. I like getting to see a bunch of friends come together. I like the whole atmosphere. But again, like, events like this are a little stressful to me and my friends. I know me and Ben were talking about it. There were some people who were descending around us who had all of the confidence but none of the skills, and those are the dangerous people, that just are willing to send it but aren't really that good. This is the part where the two routes came together. Erin did the 30 mile, which is 3,800 feet of elevation, and it was great because they split back off. Me and Ben just happened to catch her at this moment, and if she had been just 2 minutes ahead of us, we would not have seen her out on the road at all. So a little morale boost, and I think we're mid 30 miles in here for the long route to get a run into Erin.
How's your ride going, babe?
Oh, pretty good.
Oh, yeah?
I did the 30.
Oh, really?
I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah, I'm so excited to see you.
Okay.
I kept wondering when you guys would catch me.
Yeah.
I was super impressed with her ride because the 30 mile is actually 3,800 feet of elevation, so still less, but overall a more difficult ratio. So yeah, I was worried that she would hit those first few hills and be like, oh man, this is not for me. So to see, I don't mean that as a mean thing at all. Just it's, I think unlike most things that she has ridden, and still, you know, unlike most things that I ride regularly. I actually didn't ride with a bag on my bike for this ride. I didn't have one that really works with this bike that's really easily accessible. My Catalyst by Swift Industries is what I normally have on this bike, but those aren't good to be able to get into on the fly. There's just a number of buckles on the strap. So I ended up, like, as you can see, large there for a second. Ben was wearing the hip pack. I kind of wore one of those with all, I did wear one of those, not kind of, with all my tools and my snacks, which fueling wise, I did gummy butterflies and figs cut up, mixed together, and I just snacked on those once in a while. Had a couple Cliff Bars with me, but never touched them. So just about every 10 miles, made sure I was eating at least some snacks. Here we are coming into the finish. Me and Ben finished together. We rode in, had a pretty good clip. Pretty good pace. Yeah, they hand you a beer. All these guys are yelling at me to chug it, which I was not going to do. So, yeah, we hung out. We got our food. Waited for all our other friends to finish, and we sat around for, it must have been a few hours, just hanging out, drinking some beers. You know, it's free beer after you finish. Here's Mike coming in. There's Brad coming in. So yeah, just a lot of fun. We also had a friend who came in as the Lantern Rouge. That's his thing. I think he finds one of the last guys out on the course and then rolls in with him. Here's Tony finishing up. Tony brought an extra beer in case he wanted to stop or had a mechanical issue and didn't drink it, so hauled his missing fall beer for the entire 54 miles. So, yeah, after the race ended, we went back to the cabin. Micah was then staying with us that night too. Again, just hung out, had a good time. Ordered some pizza from, there's a restaurant right around the corner from this campground. Had a little boat race here. Don't worry, we didn't leave this stuff in the river. We caught it before it went out into Blackfork. But yeah, our whole plan was then to go mountain biking at the state park the next day. We woke up in the morning and it was absolutely pouring rain, and it was going to be pouring for a while. So one of the reasons we got a cabin, even though it was a bare bones cabin, was that kind of reason. It had a little overhang, so we were able to spend the morning together drinking coffee and hanging out before we just ended up rolling out. Something I definitely want to go back down and do is ride those mountain bike trails in the state park, which is just right down the road from here. So all in all, it was a great weekend, and time will tell if we will do it all again next year. Peace. Thanks, everybody. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you aren't already. See you in the next video.